Joseph René Vilatte, also known by the religious name Mar Timotheus I, was a French naturalized American Christian leader active in France and the United States. He was associated with several Christian denominations before his ordination as a priest by a Christian Catholic Church of Switzerland bishop at the request of a Protestant Episcopal Church in the United States of America bishop for service in a PECUSA diocese. He was later consecrated as a bishop by Malankara Orthodox Syrian Church bishops with the knowledge and permission of the Syriac Orthodox Patriarch of Antioch. He was expelled from multiple denominations and was an example of an episcopus vagans, although never a bishop within an Old Catholic denomination, a sect, and denounced by the Union of Utrecht Old Catholic Churches. He is known as the first Old Catholic bishop of the United States. Early life and conversion to Roman Catholicism. Vilatte was born in Paris, France, on January 24, 1855. He was raised by his paternal grandparents who were members of the Petite Église, an independent church separated from the Roman Catholic Church after the Concordat of 1801. Vincent Gordon wrote that the P had about 4,000 adherents at the time of Janssen's book. Peter Anson, in Bishops at Large, says that Vilatte's parents were members of the P and that he was probably baptized by a layman. Boyd, however, claims that Vilatte was validly baptized and educated by parents who held Gallican beliefs. Some accounts say that Vilatte was born Roman Catholic. Vilatte also lost his parents at a tender age. Raised in a Parisian orphanage operated by the Brothers of the Christian Schools where he was conditionally baptized, the sacrament of confirmation was conferred on him in Notre Dame de Paris Cathedral. His sister was an Augustinian nun, evicted during the enforcement of 1905 French law on the separation of the churches and the state from Montrouge, Paris convent. Vilatte, not yet 16, served during the Franco-Prussian War in the battalion of the National Guard militia commanded by Jules Henry Marius Bergeret, the future member of the Comité de Vigilance de Montmartre. He intended to be a Roman Catholic priest, but after the war and the Paris Commune, he went to Canada and became a member of the Methodist Church in Montreal. He also spent 2 years as a teacher and lay assistant to a French mission priest. He worked as a catechist in a small school near Ottawa and led services. After he returned to France in 1873, according to Bernard Vignot in Le Phénomène des Églises Parallèles, he was called up for military service but refused to obey. He then took refuge in Belgium. He spent 1 year in the House of the Christian Brothers at Namur. Vilatte then emigrated to Canada in 1876. Vilatte spent a second year devoted to private preparation for the priesthood before entering, in 1878, the Congregation of the Holy Cross Fathers College of St. Laurent, Montreal, Canada. Marx and Blyde wrote that he spent 3 years at the College of St. Laurent and left voluntarily. In the interval between his 3rd and 4th seminary years, Vilatte attended several anti-Catholic lectures by Charles Chiniquy, a priest who left the RCC and became a Presbyterian pastor, which led to Vilatte's doctrinal doubts. Chiniquy, a French-Canadian, was a gifted public speaker. Yves Roby, in the Dictionary of Canadian Biography, compared Chiniquy to French Bishop Charles-Auguste Marie-Joseph, Count of Fabin Janssen, of Nancy and Toul, in his spectacular preaching methods, and wrote that Chiniquy's preaching produced genuine religious transformation. Chiniquy was dubbed the Apostle of Temperance. Anthony Cross wrote in Per Hyacinth Loyson, the Église catholique gallicaine and the Anglican Reform Mission, that some made a living by attacking the Roman Church and the Society of Jesus in particular. He included Chiniquy among a number of excommunicated Roman Catholics. Catholic priests, such as former Barnabite friar Alessandro Gavazzi, who became anti-Catholic no-popery propagandists, and received ready support from Protestants. Quote, "Even some Protestants became indignant," according to Roby. Eventually at He conducted an unremitting campaign of unrestrained attacks on the Catholic Church, its dogmas, sacraments, moral doctrine, and devotional practices for 5 years. Nicholas Weber, in the Catholic Encyclopedia, wrote that Vilatte apostatized chiefly owing to the influence of Chiniki. Apostasy is the renunciation of a belief, a set of beliefs, specifically the renunciation of one's religion or faith. According to Ernest Margrander, in the Schaff-Herzog Encyclopedia of Religious Knowledge, Vilatte was unable to continue his seminary studies consistently and transferred to the Presbyterian College, Montreal, where 2 years' study convinced him of both papal additions to a primitive Catholic faith and defective Protestant interpretation of its traditional teachings. Anson contradicts Margrander. According to Anson, there was no record of Vilatte as a student at Presbyterian College. John Shea wrote in the American Catholic Quarterly Review that Vilatte was unwilling to leave the RCC, so he entered the house of the Alexian brothers, and subsequently became a cook among the clerics of St. Viator at Bourbonnais Township, Kankakee County, Illinois. But he stayed only 6 months. There, it seems, he became reacquainted with Chiniki, who lived in nearby St. Anne, Illinois. Chiniki advised him to begin missionary work among a group of French and Belgians who had abandoned Catholicism in Green Bay, Wisconsin. In April 1884, he was appointed by the Presbyterian Church in the United States of America Board of Home Missions as pastor of a French-language mission in Green Bay. He preached against the RCC and distributed Chiniki's tracts there, as well as Fort Howard, Marinette, and other parts of Wisconsin. Although Vilatte did not succeed to any extent, according to Shea, he was ordained as a Presbyterian minister in August, made an addition to his chapel, and in October invited Chiniki to come and dedicate it. This seemed to close his career as a Presbyterian. Chiniki introduced Vilatte to another former Roman Catholic, Hyacinth Loyson, a former Carmelite priest who had been excommunicated in 1869. Loyson married in London in 1872. Although Loyson was sometimes in contact with such anti-Catholic propagandists analogous to Chiniki, he was wary of the violence of the language. Quote, according to Cross, Loyson was too profoundly Catholic to associate with such extremists. Marks and Blythe identified Loyson as the source of Vilatte's interest in the Old Catholic Schism. The Église Catholique Gallicaine, founded by Loyson in 1879, was the Paris mission established under the auspices of the Anglo-Continental Society with oversight of a bishop of the Scottish Episcopal Church, and a bridgehead in a culture war which had been waged by Anglicans, admittedly at a fairly low level of activity, for nearly 20 years. The endeavor was one of a number of Anglican Reform mission interventions in Roman Catholic heartlands, among the culture wars that were being fought in Germany, Haiti, Italy, Mexico, Portugal, Spain, and Switzerland. William Ewart Gladstone played an important part in encouraging the foundation of the ECG. Loyson collaborated with the Axe in his effort to recall Frenchmen to the principles and practices of the ancient Galilean Church before it was corrupted by papal innovations. The Axe was an ecumenical organization which saw the hope of Christian Europe appears to rest on the progress of a de-Vaticanized Catholicism and a de-rationalized Protestantism. Quote, it was, Cross emphasizes, the Axe which masterminded the extraordinary venture in Paris which resulted in the founding of the ECG. Robert Nevin, the Protestant Episcopal Church in the United States of America rector in Rome, seems to have been present at every juncture in the planning, and appears to have been, with Merrick, the principal strategist in winning Anglican Episcopal backing. Quote, although official Anglican support and regular substantial financial subsidy was withdrawn from the ECG at the end of 1881, it remained unofficially supported. According to Peter Ben-Smith in Old Catholic and Philippine Independent Ecclesiologies in History, Loyson was a source of concern for the Union of Utrecht's International Old Catholic Bishops' Conference because the Dutch did not want to have anything to do with him and others could not. Quote, it was ceded to the Archdiocese of Utrecht in 1893, although most parishioners were Gallican Catholics. Shea read that the Old Catholic Schism in the United States originated with and was managed by the PECUSA. Loyson directed Vilatte, c. 1884, to apply to PECUSA Bishop John H. Brown of Fond du Lac, Wisconsin, the nearest Anglo-Catholic bishop. Marks and Blyde wrote that Loyson was a proponent of the branch theory within Anglicanism when Vilatte met Loyson, and Margrander wrote that Loyson wanted to personally talk with Vilatte regarding Catholic reform in America, and proposed that Vilatte travel to Europe for ordination as priest by a Christian Catholic Church of Switzerland Bishop Eduard Herzog of Bern, Switzerland. In 1890, Loyson denied personally knowing Vilatte. Marks and Blyde did not know if the two also met during Loyson's second 1893 to 1894 American tour. Episcopal and Old Catholic. There were two notable missions in the Episcopal Diocese of Fond du Lac, one to the Germans under the leadership of Karl Oppen, formerly a Lutheran minister, the other to the French and Belgians on the Dore Peninsula along the Green Bay of Lake Michigan, known as the Old Catholic Mission under the leadership of Vilatte. The Belgian settlement was spread out over parts of Brown, Dore, Corney counties. It stretched from the city of Green Bay, the county seat of Brown County, to the city of Sturgeon Bay, the county seat of Dore County. Brown's successor, Bishop Charles Chapman Grafton, wrote, Bishop Brown was singularly and specially interested in these two movements because they seemed to him to promise a practical solution of the difficult problem of how to deal with the question of Catholic reform among the foreign population drifting from the old moorings in the unrest of our American life. A feature of area was the number of nationalities represented. Shea described the Roman Catholic Diocese of Green Bay as one where the faithful were poor, scattered, and spoke too many languages. The bishop had to find priests able to give instructions and hear confessions in English, French, German, Dutch, Walloon, Bohemian, Polish, and Menominee, a nation of Native Americans living in Wisconsin. In a small congregation of 100 families, a priest might find 3 languages necessarily for the exercise of the ministry. It was not easy to obtain priests able to take charge of these missions, or to prevent them becoming discouraged when they found even the scanty allowance expected by a priest almost impossible. Grafton wrote that it had been said that nearly 70% of the population were foreigners or descendants of foreigners. Grafton also listed Swedes, Belgians, Norwegians, Danes, Icelanders, Bulgarians, Italians, Greeks, and Armenians. Grafton wrote that if the Episcopal Church was Catholic in its doctrine and worship, it certainly could reach members of those several nationalities, and supply the spiritual needs. The Episcopal Church planted in localities where most of the people were Swedes or Bulgarians or Belgians had found a footing and congregations had developed. Brown had no use for Vilatte as an episcopal priest, having no French Episcopalians for Vilatte to minister to. A number of Roman Catholics situated in Dor County, who were mostly Belgian, had broken away from the Holy See and had taken the position of Old Catholics. Brown laid the situation before the episcopal bishops in council. They agreed to let Brown take charge of the work as bishop and permitted the use there of the Old Catholic liturgy as used in Switzerland. The intention was to form a type of separate rite within the Episcopal Church. Brown informed Grafton of these facts, and Bishop John Williams, the presiding bishop, also. When Grafton became bishop, he confirmed this intention. A pamphlet published in connection with Vilatte's mission admitted to what She considered as fraud and dishonesty. She quoted, "This course was decided upon on account of the religious prejudices on the part of the Belgians for whose religious wants Bishop Brown had selected him. If he had gone as an American priest among them, he would have been ignored as a Protestant minister. Anglican orders, particularly when derived from an episcopate officially styled Protestant, are in disrepute with all Roman Catholics. The very name of Protestant is hateful and makes them shrink back. In short, they will have nothing to do with anything connected with Protestantism." On the other hand, Old Catholic orders, like the Greek, are held to be valid by them. The Bishop of Fond du Lac had the sagacity to see this and decide accordingly. Hjalmar Holland wrote in History of Dor County, Wisconsin, "The County Beautiful," that the term Episcopalian was not familiar to the Belgians. He represented himself as Old Catholic, a term which is sometimes used synonymously, according to Holland, and has a more commendable sound to Catholic ears. Vilatte followed Loyson's alternative advice to consult with Brown. Vilatte had joined the Protestant Episcopal Church in America.